Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk. Art and Talk is all about meeting artists and being inspired. If you've been watching us for a while, thank you so much for your continued support. If you're new to us, welcome. With each of our shows on Art and Talk, we aim to dive into the heart and mind of our guest artists so that we can gain some deeper insight, some deeper messages, some wider perspective of their art, their message, of course, and their process. All right, so today we're continuing to bring you another artist that has artwork currently on exhibit at the Art Acquisitions, large and small, that's at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County and Lake Worth Beach, Florida. So let's just talk a moment about what Art Acquisitions is about. The Art Acquisition exhibit spans over multiple art mediums, and it opens up a conversation for artists and collectors to define, assess, and question their appreciation for art. All right, so our guest today is a visual artist, and we'll be looking at some of her beautiful paintings and diving into her art and her journey. So thank you again for being with us. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Suzanne Redmond. Hi, Suzanne, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be a part of this.
Oh, well, we're so happy to have you here and dive into your art and your journey, your beautiful paintings. Maybe we can start, Suzanne. You've been doing art for a while. Can you take us back a little bit to how you began to study art and become involved in art? How did all these doors open for you?
Okay, well, let's see. I can take you way back and tell you that I have a degree in accounting and I worked in business for many years. But then later I went and worked in the art world. I had always done some kind of craft throughout my whole life. Growing up, I did crafts with my mom, lots of different things, but I never considered myself an artist. And then I'd say around, I was always doing things. I made a lot of jewelry, but I'd say around 2000, early 2000s, I started becoming aware of what I would think of as the mixed media world, artists who use paper and paint and all these other supplies to make art, whether it's just in a journal or on a canvas. And I became aware of them first through magazines that I could find, and then as the internet started coming about, but really mostly the magazines. And so I went to a art retreat in probably 2004 because I just wanted to get away and take some art classes. It was called Art and Soul. It still exists. It was in Portland, Oregon. You go for a week or you go for a day, however amount of time you take off, and you sign up for a full day class every single day you're there. So I went for a week. And the reason I chose Art and Soul in Portland is because my brother lived there. So I was able to save money on hotel and I didn't rent a car or anything. So I went from Florida all the way across the country to save money and go to these art classes. And each class was maybe 10 to 20 people, but because they offered so many classes each day, there were 500 attendees at this art retreat, and we all stayed at the same hotel where the classes were. So I started to meet other artists. And back then, there was no Facebook or Instagram, but everybody had blogs where they would showcase their art. So I started a blog and I started following all these artists. So that's how I became aware of different styles of art. And I started to get the feeling for what I liked and what I liked to do. Now, it used to be jewelry. I mean, I still enjoyed making jewelry, but when I first got into the art world, I sold my jewelry at art shows, outdoor, the big 10 by 10 tent type of art shows. But I had always been taking painting classes and other mixed media classes. And again, I never considered myself an artist. I thought an artist was somebody who could look at a bird and then draw that bird perfectly. I thought you had to be realistic artist to really be an artist. But I thought, I want to take these other classes for fun. So after I took the in-person classes. I went to that retreat about 3 or 4 years in a row, and I would take a different bookmaking, artist books, jewelry making, painting, collage. I do all different classes. Then I became aware of online classes, and I started to continue my education through taking online classes. And then, of course, with Facebook and then Instagram, I started following artists and learning more that way. So my focus now is painting. I don't call it mixed media because I'm using acrylic paint. It's just two different techniques. So I'm using paint with a brush and then paint with a pen, paint pens. I do collage kind of for fun, but when I'm applying to shows to exhibit my paintings, it's all acrylic paint and acrylic paint pens. So that's the style that I am working with right now. And the collage I do for fun.
And Suzanne, the style with sort of like an abstract feel and with acrylics and pen, how long have you been working with this series and kind of diving into this area of art?
I would say since 2018. So I really worked hard to develop my own style, and it was a concentrated effort. So in 2018, I started in Instagram for my own personal art. And I just started posting everything that I made. So in a span of, and it was really like the end of 2018. So for 2019, I made 125 paintings. So that, yeah, a lot of them on canvas, a lot of them, not all big. I learned about this product called canvas paper, which is just a pad with sheets of canvas, and they're already gessoed. So I was able to more affordably make lots of paintings in order to try out different techniques and color combinations and the paint pens and see what I liked. And I made an awful lot in the 2018, 2019 time period. So that's when I really worked hard to develop my own style.
So it sounds, Suzanne, like you were really on a conscious trajectory to develop your own style, to develop your own voice.
Yes, I was. I certainly was. Yeah. And everything I did, I posted on my Instagram account, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise. I just put everything up there. I didn't have a deadline for anything. Have you ever heard of the 100-Day Project or things like that people do on Instagram? I've done that before, and I've been inspired by what others have done with the 100-Day Project, where they're trying to post something every day for 100 days. But I always say, there's no 100-day police telling you, oh, you skipped a day. Oh, you messed up. So I just keep posting things, and I don't count. And I may skip a day. I may skip 6 days. I may do 5 things in one day and nothing for 2 weeks. But I just wanted to put everything out there so I could see my progression of how my art has changed.
Mm-hmm. So you put it all out there, just sort of just in this very trusting kind of flowing sort of way. And it sounds like you always like challenge yourself, all these different classes, whether they were in person or online, kind of going way back to the one that you were discussing, and then the ones that you took after that. So you were constantly almost like kind of like a sponge in a way. It's like you just wanted to kind of grab hold to everything. And as you said, see what felt right for you, see what you liked, and then really develop your own style, your own artistic voice.
Yes, I definitely did. And so what I've come up with is I like to do a painted background using brushes, and it's kind of splotches of different colors. The example that I have behind me right now are in the same color family, some blues and purples. And after I've done the background, then I come back with paint pens and I illustrate, I draw in flowers and leaves and branches. But what I say is I don't know what you would call it, but they're made up in my own head. So even though I go on lots of walks through the woods and through the wetlands of Florida, and I'm inspired by different flowers and plants, then when I go back and put them on canvas, I'm creating my own colors and my own patterns with the flowers. So you may look at a flower and say, well, gee, that has what, 13 petals? What flower is that? Well, no, I just made it up. So I'm kind of abstracting the flowers and the nature once it gets onto my canvases.
Mm-hmm. And I love the creative license that you kind of bring to your expression. And I'd like to just tap in a little bit before we look at some of your paintings, Suzanne. So this is really beautiful that you go on all these walks in different parks in Florida, and that's really the inspiration for your art, all the different sights and sounds, the flowers, the leaves, everything that you're seeing, you're just taking it all in. Then you go back into your studio, and then from the feeling, not the representational, specifics of what you saw, you're just bringing this whole, almost like a visceral feeling and expressing whatever feels right to you in your colors and your shapes.
Yes, definitely. And I do a lot of layers, and there's so many different types of flowers and things next to each other, behind each other, in front of each other. So I'm trying to convey the lushness of a garden. So you're looking through and seeing the layers of plants behind the ones in front.
Mhm. So that aspect of layers is really important to you as you approach the canvas.
Yes, yes. And so in terms of the tools that I use, I've found a brand of paint pen. It's acrylic paint and it's called Posca, and it's opaque. So I can put a flower and then put another one on top of it and cover it lightly, or not lightly, but cover it just a little bit because it's in front, and the opaque makes it feel that it's right up front. Do you see what I mean? So I can do those layers because it's not a transparent paint.
And how did this whole idea start? I mean, because I just find it so beautiful and very poetic that you would take these walks and take in all the beauty and then want to share it and express it artistically. So had this idea been kind of tinkering around it? It just sort of happened one day you were at a park, you came back in your studio and you started to paint, or was it like a conscious thing that you created to go to parks and then paint? How did all this kind of manifest?
Yeah, I guess it was just kind of built in me. So it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision, but flowers have always been huge for me in my life. I've always loved flowers. In fact, when I got married, my concern was the flowers. And I had, what did I have? I had 6 bridesmaids, and each bridesmaid had a bouquet of one solid color flower. So one bridesmaid's bouquet was pink, one was purple, one was blue, one was bright pink, and one was white. And then I had 1 or 2 of each flowers in my bouquet. So then mine was multicolored. So I've always really focused on flowers. In fact, I remember somebody said, they were talking about, well, what do you want on your cake? And I said, oh, I don't care. It's the flowers. That's what means, that's the big thing for my wedding details. So anyway, when I started painting and kind of exploring what I wanted to do, flowers just came naturally, and I would do a single flower or 2 or 3 as the center, and then the painted background really stood out because I would just do a couple of flowers on the page or on the canvas. But then one day I was working on this canvas that's quite large, and I believe that's one of the photos you're going to show. It's 3 feet by 3 feet, so it's a pretty big canvas. And I just started at the bottom doing little flowers in patches. And so I had already done the painting background in patches. So I had blue here and pink there and yellow there and orange or whatever. And I treated each patch of paint as a setting point for a different kind of flower. So each patch grew a different flower from it. So I would have a patch of yellow flowers and a patch of red flowers or something. And I did the entire canvas that way. So instead of a focal, I did all little flowers, the whole thing. And it took me weeks because this was such a large canvas. But that was the first time I did the all over garden effect. And that's when I said, okay, that's what I love. I love putting things all over the entire canvas. And you're really just getting the hint of the background color because you've covered most of the foreground with all these flowers.
And Suzanne, can you take us through a mini walk? Like we're at a park and
Yes.
with you. And now, do you have a little strategy? Do you just let it all just happen? Like, do you start to see something that catches your eye as you're walking? Do you stop and look at it? Do you photograph it? Do you take a note? Do you just walk and just, you see what you see, and then you know that you're just going to take it back in your studio? Take us on a little mini walk in a park with you. What's that like?
Okay, well, I'll tell you about one of my favorite parks. It's in the city of Wellington, Florida. And it's actually a reclaimed wetland. So it was going to be farmland, or it was farmland. And then the city did whatever they need to do to make it a natural wetlands again. So it's got various parts to it. So right by the parking lot, there's a beautiful garden that's been planted by the Wellington Garden Club, and they maintain that. So right when you park, you're seeing all these flowers in this gorgeous garden. And then as you walk through the park, sometimes you're walking on pavement trails that they've created, sometimes on wooden boardwalks. Sometimes you're seeing the water, the wetlands, and lily pads and grass and reeds. And sometimes it's thick forest. Well, what I get out of it is the different layers and levels of color. So you may go through that. People may think, out-of-towners might think that all we have is green, that it's just green, green, green. We don't get the fall colors, the changes of the leaves, different things. We don't get as many flowers as they might get, or we get different ones that they might get up north. But if you really look, and that's what I do, I really look, you see that just in one photograph, you could get 10 different shades of green in there. So I may take those different shades and say, well, this one kind of has like a pink tinge to it, and so I want pink on the painting here. Or this one is almost like a blue-green, so I'm going to make this blue on my painting. And so I'll walk through and I notice all those things. And surprisingly, we have a ton of red leaves, reddish, kind of like brick red leaves. And so I notice all these different colors, and I do take pictures. I take photographs when I'm out there walking. And so I'm trying to get, and it's not just all the greens, but it's the water too. So the water might have 10 different shades of blue, gray, black, green, all these different colors. And so that's what I'm trying to put on my canvases, to show the layers of, well, it was blue here, but the water is black here, or the water's purple here, or the sun is shining in and the water is silver there. So that's what I'm trying to do on my canvases. Now, if you take one of my canvases and you compare it to my latest walk, it's not going to look like it at all, because it's me and my imagination, how I'm making it my own colors. But I just say it's an inspiration of when I'm out there walking.
Yeah, that was great. I love that. So we really feel like we could kind of be in your shoes, walking and looking very closely and very acutely. And of course, the flowers and the colors are very, very important to you. And then kind of like subordinate would be like the water and the leaves.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the water is amazing, but the photograph doesn't do it justice. So even looking at my photographs, I have to remember what I truly saw, because the photograph just looks so 2D and flat, and you don't see that, okay, there's reeds right here, and the reeds are this, this high, a foot high, sticking up out of the water. And then there's water, but then this has patches of algae on the top. And so you can't really tell the 3D in the photograph. So that's why I have to remember it as well.
Suzanne, let's take a look at some of your beautiful paintings. Give me just a second.
All righty.
Let's pull them up. All right. Here's the first one. Now, this is you actually in the Cultural Council in the exhibit space.
Yes. And so the large picture painting is the one that I was talking about, the 3 by 3 foot. And I tried to do all the different layers. So every place where I did a, let's say, light purple background, then those yellow leaves, those yellow flowers would go on that spot. And every time I had like a pinkish mauve background, these white, pink, almost carnation flowers appeared there. So I tried to repeat the flowers where the background colors repeat as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And then the one on the left is, I tried to do the background in a family of colors. So it's a blue and purple background. There's another one that I had there that actually sold, and it's the same size, but it's orange and yellowy red backgrounds. So I might have repeated colors of the flowers, but the background is completely different. And that's what changes the painting, the overall painting.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
first of all, congratulations for that one that sold.
Yeah, that was exciting because it sold at the opening night reception. So it's nice to be walking around with your friends and talking to people, and then someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, one of yours sold." So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. All right, let's continue on. Okay.
Yeah, now this one is not all over flowers. I tried to do leave some of the background exposed. And then I also tried to do some graphic designs. So if you see in the upper left corner, the black, I did just triangles, a series of triangles. And then I'm trying to balance the black diagonally across the painting. So you see triangles on the right, and then you also see these black kind of ovals that I've done. And so when I'm repeating patterns, I'm hoping that it's taking your eye around the painting and you're moving around and seeing all parts of it. So, and then I'm also repeating things. So when you see that purple flower, I have another purple flower to the right. So it's helping your eye go. And then the red, that's the only red in the whole painting. And I just wanted it to be intriguing by suddenly putting a different color in there.
I love
Yeah.
you sharing your thought process as you approach the canvas with the emphasis on pattern and color and layers, having the eye move around. I'm wondering, Suzanne, when you're actually creating these paintings, how much, I mean, if you want to give a percentage, how much is actually just kind of flowing, coming out, you're recalling in your memory, what you saw, and then how much is actually the thought process, maybe stepping back or saying, okay, look, I want to move this color through here. Let's get the eye moving around. Like, can you give us a breakdown of how much is sort of left brain and how much is sort of right brain and where they meet?
Well, I guess you would say composition would be left brain, where I'm logically thinking of balance and not putting things right on the center or symmetrical. So like that purple flower in the middle, it's in the middle from left to right, but it's not in the middle up to down, top to bottom, because then you would think of it as a centerpiece, a focal, and you wouldn't keep looking around at the other pieces. So that's why I purposely didn't put it in the center. So the composition, I would say, is more the left brain. The right brain is, I would think it's the ones that you don't think about, or you do without thinking. Does that make sense? So when you're putting a dark purple next to a lighter purple, you just inherently know that they go well together. And so you're not thinking, you're just putting it there. And if you look on the top right corner where I have that yellow, that's the only place where I put yellow in there. Well, it needed something because that was a large piece with nothing of background, with nothing on the foreground. It needed something. And so I came up with that yellow. And so it helped to make it more like a nature scene, because it looks like the moon and stars. Yeah. So it is definitely a combination of left brain, right brain, of rules that I think make a painting look good, and then other things that I just naturally know they look good because I've done it so many times.
And there's this beautiful invitation to almost dream. Like when I was looking at your work in the exhibition space and looking at these now, I feel a call to just move in a direction of dreaming, of like potential. Do you feel that in your work? Is that something that a quality that you feel is inherent in there, Suzanne?
Well, I like that you say that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about that. Yes, I like it that people can do a little bit of their own interpretation. And because I'm making up flowers, I'm making up plants and these just marks on the page, that leaves it up for interpretation. Well, what is that plant? So for example, the blue on the left, that's just like a branch with leaves. It almost looks like it could be underwater, like that could be a coral. And so that I leave that up to you to decide, well, is that underwater? Is this an underwater scene, or is that portion of the painting underwater, but the rest is on the banks on land? So I do on purpose leave things open for you to figure it out and decide for yourself, because I want you to enjoy it for yourself. And if you think it's something different than I think, that's fine. That means you're going to enjoy it in your own way.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. All right.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Next one.
Oh, now this one, I love this one because I tried to do so many different flowers, just layers and layers and more flowers on top of it, and just cover this with flowers. And I really am pleased with the results for this one. So if you first concentrate on the background, I'm using greens and blues for the background. And it's, at first you might think it's hard to use green because then I want to use so much green for leaves, for the greenery. Well, as you see, I didn't use that many greens for the greenery, for the leaves and branches. I used them on the tall pink flowers,
Mhm.
but the other colors are almost like a bluish green. And I think with the blue, the cobalt blue flowers, that might be like an olive green or almost even black. So I tried something different with the background colors, using things in the green family. And then I tried something different by doing layers and layers and adding so many different flowers and branches to this one. I love this one. This is one of my favorites.
Mhm. And I love all that you're sharing. So we really get a sense of what's involved in all of these works from all the different aspects.
Yeah, yes. And so you notice, you can see a repeat of a design element. You see those horizontal ovals that I've done there in white. I like doing that because, and another one I had just like patches of vertical black ovals, I think in one of the other ones. I like doing that because I feel like it gives you an idea of, well, what is that? Are those water lilies on a pond? Are they maybe insects flying across? You know, what are they? It just kind of gives you a little bit more interest.
Mhm. And Suzanne, it feels like there's almost like a singing quality, like the flowers are singing. There's such a beautiful, sense of creative play and sophistication and your color display. Do you feel some of that, um, kind of within your work as well?
I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. I think of movement more than I think of singing. I
Mhm.
think of movement. I try to make some of the branches sway to the left, sway to the right, not all of them straight up. So you feel like there's wind going through, or one flower is pushing another flower over. So I guess I think more of the movement of things.
Right, right. So that sense of movement, and then, like you were saying before, having the eye move around, and then with your sense of how you want to represent the flowers and your walk and the feeling, and then the colors and the shapes.
Yes, yeah. And then it, to me, it's balance. And so my balance may be different than your balance, but when I have these three dark purple flowers on the bottom left, I felt like I needed three on the top right. So it's balancing.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And our final one here.
Okay, so this one has a story to it. In January of 2021, that's when we were in the thick of the pandemic. Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week is something that's done in the Fort Lauderdale, really the whole Broward County area, in January of every year. They've done it for many years, and they're trying to get people in to see the art and culture that's available in Broward County. and they do lots of things. One of the big things that they did was a art show in vacant homes on the water, and you would take a water taxi and go from home to home looking at all the art. They would invite artists to display the art in these homes, and they just did a lot of things. Well, January of 21, they really couldn't do that because of the pandemic. And so most of their events, it's a week full of events, they did them online. And so you would see like a mural tour, and somebody would be outside walking through maybe the Hollywood, Florida murals, and you would look at it through a Zoom call or through Facebook. Well, one of the things they did is, in inviting people to see the art and culture of Fort Lauderdale, exposing them to it, they're inviting them to come and visit Fort Lauderdale. Well, people couldn't come visit at that point. So a lot of hotels, in particular the small boutique hotels were really hurting for business. And they thought, well, what can we do to help them? So they came up with this idea of doing an artist residency, and artists could apply to be a week-long resident at a hotel. And for that week, they would be painting and posting things on social media about their stay. So I applied for that artist residency, and I was one of 3 artists who were awarded a residency. They set us up at 3 different hotels in Broward County. And I was at this lovely hotel right on the beach in Davie, like Davie/Hollywood, right at the border in Florida. And it was gorgeous. They chose the perfect hotel for me. I think it was random, but they chose the perfect hotel. It had a gorgeous garden in the front with all these tables and chairs. And I was the only guest there because no one was staying in hotels there. And so for a week, I was painting a canvas. And so the idea was I would paint a canvas and I would leave it with them. So I stayed there for free, but then they got this painting. So this now is in display on one of their rooms of their hotel. And this is the painting that I made that week. So I put in some cactus, which is on the bottom right, and then elsewhere, because there were a lot of cactus in their garden, I made some ixora, which is on the bottom next to the cactus. Ixora is a flower with little, a green bush or hedge, and it has little reddish, coralish flowers, 5-petal flowers. And so I was inspired by what I saw by staying there for a week, and that's what I painted that week. Mm-hmm. And I put palm fronds at the top because there were a lot of palm trees above everything with the branches, the fronds coming down on top of you. So that's this painting, and it's in the permanent collection of the hotel.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what a great story. And a great example again of your use of color and your beautiful sense of design, and of course your love of flowers and nature and creativity.
Yeah, and it's a big painting. I can't remember the measurements, but it's something like 20 by 24 or something. And so I knew I had a week to do this painting, and I start painting, and Tuesday night I panicked thinking I'm never going to get this done. I chose too big a painting, and so I stayed up till midnight working on it, and then I felt a little better and I could relax because I knew I could finish it. And while I was there, I painted 2 other 12 by 12 paintings, and then at the end of the week they did a nice reception so people could come over. But because of the pandemic, they didn't put it wide open to everybody. We didn't have a lot of people at the reception, in other words, but they did the best they could in that time period. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fantastic. Such beautiful paintings. And I love
Thank you.
And all that you're sharing, with your technique and your process and how you think about it and arrange it and get all the different areas to work in the way that you want to.
Yes, well, you're asking all the right questions to get the answers out of me. So thank you.
Awesome. Suzanne, you've also done a lot for artists. We could touch upon that with the pop-up galleries and rotating permanent exhibits. Can you share with us some of these activities?
Yes. Well, and I will preface it by saying I haven't done that much in the last couple of years, pandemic, we just haven't done a lot of in-person shows. But when I decided to go and do painting full time, well, really, I started with jewelry, selling jewelry and shows full time. I knew that I had met so many artists nationwide by going to these art retreats and following people's blogs, but I didn't know a lot of people in my county. So I thought the best way to meet other artists is to join an artist group. So I joined the Wellington Art Society, which is in the town right next to me, town of Wellington. And they have monthly meetings, and they always have about 80 to 100 members. And they would invite a different artist every single every single month to do like a demo. And so that's how I got to meet more artists. And then I guess they found out that I have a business background, and I started helping them set up shows, and I created shows from scratch as well as carried on shows. I became their president for a couple of years. I was on the board of directors and then president. So I helped curate and put on shows all from the start of sending the call to artists out, and then judging which art was coming in, and then hanging. And so they would do rotating galleries where every 3 months it would be different artists. You would reapply every 3 months. And we also did some pop-up galleries where we would use a space. In fact, they used a space in a mall. You know, sometimes the malls will have not just inside malls, but actually strip center malls will have an empty space, and the owner will let you use it for a pop-up show. So we did one at the Wellington Mall, and we did it twice. In fact, the second one was right before everything shut down. So it was it was end of February or March or something of 2020. We did this pop-up gallery, and so you utilize the space for a week or 10 days or whatever, and you fill it with art, and you have lots of big events to bring people in. So you have an opening reception, you have maybe you get a musician to come in Saturday night, and you have music and drinks one night. Sometimes you might do like an artist talk where a couple of artists will talk about their work. And so I got involved with that. Well, then I also wanted to get involved with not just Wellington artists, but throughout Palm Beach County, because we have such a vibrant art scene. So I joined other arts groups, and that connected me with two artists, Anthony Burks and Trina Slade Burks. And they put on a pop-up show every year called Continuum, and it would be in a different location in West Palm Beach each January. And so I just hit it off with Trina. We really hit it off as friends, and Anthony as well. And so I would help them as they were curating and putting on shows. So like I said, I haven't been as involved with that because they haven't done that show since January of 2020. But I hope to do more in the future. Yeah.
And Suzanne, you seem to really enjoy, just from the get-go, as you've been explaining, we really enjoy almost like a collaborative experience and interaction and learning and being inspired from other artists and helping other artists and kind of, learning from them and seeing what they're doing and sharing at all that level. So there's almost like a very extroverted part or aspect to you where you really love to be around artists and all these different like organizations, and then all the different classes, and just, the pop-up galleries and all the different activities and endeavors that you've been involved with. You kind of love that scene with other artists as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so one of the things I did, because I met so many artists in person or virtually all over the United States by going to classes and taking them. And then I met so many within Palm Beach County. I felt like, well, gosh, these Palm Beach County ones need to be known by these other artists and the rest of the art world, and vice versa. So 4 years ago, I decided to start a podcast where I would interview artists once a week. And so I started that. I call it the Left Brain Artist, because we talk about the art and their business. And it was a way to get the word out about all these amazing artists in the world. And so in 4 years, I've done almost 260 episodes and interviewed like 180 artists. Some of them I've interviewed twice, kind of as a follow-up. I did that when everything shut down in 2020. I didn't feel comfortable calling up artists and saying, hey, or emailing them rather, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? Tell me about how your art business is going, because I realized it's not going, everything's shut down. And so instead of inviting new artists to be on the podcast for a 2-month period, I invited artists I'd already interviewed to come back and tell everybody how their art business had changed now that everything had shut down. Because a lot of artists, they're dependent on gallery shows. And of course that was shut down. Or they're dependent on in-person teaching, and that was shut down. So anyway, I did a lot of repeats because I wanted to go back and talk to people. So I've interviewed artists from 10 different countries all over the world. I just love meeting different artists and finding out what they do. And my podcast, you can find it on any of the podcast apps: Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all these things. But I also put them all on my website. So I have a tab on my website for podcasts, my website, SuzanneRedmond.com. And so they're all embedded in there. So you can, I always say, that's where you tell your mom or your grandma who doesn't want to do an app. You say, here, I'll just open it up on this website and you can listen there. So they're all embedded right in my website. But I'm going to tell you something right now, that I've made the decision to stop the podcast after 4 years and 260 episodes. So by the time this Our Talk Today comes out, I may be done with the podcast, but I will miss it, but I want to do more of my own art and do some other projects. And I've done it weekly for 4 years. In fact, for the first 32 months, I didn't even take a week break. I just went so constant because I wanted to be consistent. And my option could have been to maybe, instead of doing weekly interviews, I could have gone every other week or once a month, but I decided to just stop it completely, and I'm not leaving it. I will leave it open to start it up again if I want to, but that's something that I've decided to do, and it's happening around now. But of course, all the episodes will still remain for at least a year or two. So they remain on podcast apps for a year or two, and they will remain on my website forever, as long as I want to keep them, because I put them all on my website.
Right.
So you can still listen to all the past interviews.
Right. So everyone still has access to them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now coming full circle, and now you want to focus more on your art, on your painting. Now, do you have planned or kind of some ideas tinkering around of new places, new parks to go to? Are you thinking about new materials to use? What's kind of going on in the plane of your current work, and then maybe projecting it out a little bit?
Well, one of the things I want to do is do some collections. So maybe like 12 to 20 items, and that's a collection of a theme. And the theme might be the size of it, that I'm doing 12 8x8 paintings, or it could be 20 works on paper, something like that. So I want to kind of put out collections and kind of get excitement for it, and then announce it on Instagram that okay, now the collection is available for purchase. And I do have a vibrant newsletter list, so the people on my email list will get first dibs on purchasing. So that's something I want to try and see if it works.
Mm-hmm. And now, is the subject matter, Suzanne, going to stay with florals?
Not necessarily. I also may do some collage, so not just painting also, because I've been doing a lot of mini collages, like maybe 5x7, and I've been exploring different techniques and combinations of things, and so that might be a part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
As we need to move into wrapping up the show, is there anything, Suzanne, that we haven't touched upon in your art, in your artistic journey, that you'd like to share with us?
No, I just think that everyone should get inspired by other artists. The more you look at other artists and you meet them in person and talk to them or listen to them on podcasts, the more inspired you will be. And I think that will help anyone who's trying to find their own artistic style, or is trying to get out of a block, trying to move forward with their art. So I just want to encourage people to meet and talk with other artists.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing that, Suzanne.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And now, how can we stay in touch with you? You did mention your website. What other social media connections do you have so we can stay in touch?
All right, so I have a website, SuzanneRedmond.com. My art is on there with also a section of my podcast episodes. And then on Instagram, I have a account for my art called Suzanne Redmond Art. And then on Facebook, it's more like a group page, and it's also called Suzanne Redmond Art. So if you go to Facebook and you friend me on Suzanne Redmond, then you get to see pictures of my kids. But it's Suzanne Redmond Art where I'll be posting art, my own art on Facebook.
Mhm. Suzanne, thank you so much for being our guest today on Art and Talk. It's been such a wonderful dive into your art and into your artistic journey and how everything is unfolding and continues to. And it's exciting your new direction that's taking shape with kind of expanding out into trying new things as well.
Yes, well, thank you. It's really been lovely talking to you. You just have a beautiful knack of asking the right questions. So thank you.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. And much success with the art acquisitions exhibit and in your personal work and personal endeavors as well.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching Art and Talk today. Stay connected with us on our YouTube channel and also on Facebook. We'll be continuing to bring you a select group of artists from the art acquisitions exhibit. And again, that's at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County and Lake Worth Beach, Florida. If you have not seen the exhibit and you're local to South Florida, or perhaps you're just passing through, you definitely want to stop by and check out the amazing exhibit. And just another quick note, if you jump on our Facebook page, you'll also be able to find two links, one to the Cultural Council website, and you can take a look at the exhibit and all the contributing artists and get a little more information. And we also have a video tour of the exhibition space if you want to check that out as well. All right, so thank you again for watching today, and we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed.